Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your boy, Collis Stutzer from the Culture Talks. We are back again with another episode. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Another guest. I promised y'all I'm going to continue the guests coming. We had a little, stagnation there during the beginning of the quarantine where it was a little difficult to get some guests on, but we're picking it back up. So thank you guys for tapping in. Thank all of you for tapping into the most recent episode I did with Branova Diva from Toronto. That was a great conversation. And today we have a new guest. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, my guy.
What's up, guys? I'm David Sosna. I am a NBA content creator.
Beautiful, beautiful. See, when I was thinking about like an intro, I was like, should I read off his IG caption his IG bio, or should I like come up with my own little vibe? But as you heard it here, he's a content creator for the NBA. He's a super dope videographer and photographer. I've been following him for I think a little under 2 years or a little over 2 years now. I can't exactly remember, but let's start from the beginning, brother. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? High school? What's the early life of David look like?
Yeah, man. So I'm from Prairie Village, just right out over on Kansas side of KC, and I went to Chi Mission East for high school. Big into sports during that time period. Was going to run track in college, but I blew out my knee my senior year playing football, and so that was kind of a big identity shift for me. I was all about the athletic side of things. That was everything. So I'm glad my career involves sports now, but that's kind of where the love for it started, was back then. I went to University of Arkansas for school, for college. I got my degree in kinesiology in hopes of being an athletic trainer to just stay inside the world of sports. You know, that's just what I always knew. That's kind of where things kind of got started from there. And then obviously I can dive more into how things progressed from there. But that was kind of early life, was in Kansas City, stayed kind of over on the OP kind of Prairie Village side of things. And then throughout high school, Chi Mission East. And really that entire time can be summarized by just football, basketball, and track. That's all I ever did. That's all that I literally ever spent time on. So during that early phase, it was all sports related, but it wasn't in the realm of creating anything at all. It was all just participating in those sports. And then when the knee happened, then things started to shift. And how can I be involved in this world, but in a different realm, if that makes sense?
Yeah, bro. I think you and I's story actually along those lines match a lot. And I think it actually is like such a popular and regular story we hear, where somebody was an athlete growing up all their life. You know, all they knew was sports. Like they wanted to go to the NBA, they wanted to go to NFL, whatever professional lane they wanted to go down. They wanted to play collegiate sports, and that was all they thought of from like age 6 when they started playing sports until 18. But something for the majority of athletes, as we all know, the famous only 1% of this many million, whatever. But, you know, the majority of athletes, something happens, whether it's an injury, whether they're not good enough like myself, whether, you know, something happened in the family, there's something that shuts down that option. And then I think that's such a scary time. Like for me, it was a scary time. How did you like navigate that time period? Because I know, like you said at the beginning of starting what you said there, it can like kind of turn into an identity crisis where you're like, this was me. This is what I expected my life to look like until at least 30 something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that mentally, spiritually?
Yeah. So for me, it was really tough. When I got to Arkansas, I was trying to figure out, you know, what the next step was. And at Arkansas, man, it's like basically a third of the campus is Greek. So a big part of, if you go to Arkansas and you're not on a team, like the next step is joining Greek life. That's just the way things are. And so things didn't work out for me that fall semester. And during that time period, I also lost my grandpa at that time. And that was like it was like everything was going wrong, and everybody says that. Everyone's like, everything was going wrong, but man, it felt that way. And as an 18-year-old kid, just trying to figure out what college was going to look like, what that next step was, man, it left me really kind of lost and broken. And the thing that I latched onto for the first time in my life was actually like my faith during that time. And so I started to dive into my spiritual life for the first time ever. And there's some awesome college ministries at my school, and I got plugged into those. And for me at that time period, that was how I was coping. It was turning to something bigger than me, because it's a big ego hit, and everybody that comes in as a 18-year-old thinks they're, the stud. And man, my ego got hit quite a bit. And man, I had to turn to something that was bigger than me, and my faith's taking its own journey for sure. But for me, it was that and finding a group within that I could kind of hold on to. And then interpersonally, it was like, okay, like just because you're not doing a sport, you still need to take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and you still gotta function as a human being. And so a lot of it was that, man, it was kind of a combination of those things.
Man, it's such a kind of like good feeling to know that there was a lot more people, same age as me, going through that similar challenge, and that it's kind of just a repetitive thing. So anybody listening to this, or that ends up listening to this, and your high school career sports might have just ended and you don't really know what's next, just know that you will navigate through that. You will find your thing, as young David did here. So what was the moment where a camera like popped in your head and you were like, okay, let me mess around with this? Not like, oh, this is gonna be my life, but when was it where you were like, oh, this is kind of dope, let me play around?
Yeah. So I'd always kind of known that I like had a nag for photos just on my phone. I could just tell that some of what I was seeing or taking photos of just looked okay. I didn't know what that actually was or anything like that, but I knew I kind of had an eye for it early on. But the real turning point was I was in Kansas City, and this is after my first job out of college was actually in the nonprofit ministry world. And that ended about 9 months after I started it. And so I came back to Kansas City just trying to figure out what was next. I was doing some personal training. That was another big turning point in my life, because I thought I was going to do ministry just for forever, And so again, another identity crisis kind of during this time period right out of college. And I had a buddy that was a photographer, and he asked me, he said, man, what's a skill you want to learn this month? And it's kind of just a normal question that we would ask each other, but he was doing photos. So I was like, well, you're doing photo, man, I'd love to like learn some video stuff. I don't know exactly what that looks like or what, but basically I bought a DJI Osmo Mobile 2, kind of a starting little rig that you can have for your phone, and you can kind of run around on that. And so I had that, and I started just running around the city filming. And then I got kind of a basic editing software on my iPad, and I started to edit. And what I realized during those first couple weeks was how much I loved doing it. I fell in love with shooting, with editing. The videos were terrible. They were absolutely horrible. There's nothing like great about them at all, but I knew that I loved it. And so not shortly after, I left my job that I was working at the time, kind of stopped everything that was happening. And right after that time period, I went all in and I bought my camera and my lens. And so I bought an A7S3 or A7 III and the 24-70 G Master lens, which if you know anything about cameras, that's a solid setup to get started on as your first camera for sure. And so during that time period was when I first had a camera in my hand, and I had no idea what I was doing. And that kind of was the starting point. And that was 2 years ago, April. So a little over 2 years ago now was when I first had the camera in my hands. And that kind of was the start of the journey from there.
And I kind of want to double back to something real quick. So,
Yeah.
did you say the friend that asked you that question, which I think is you stated that it's a general question, but I also think it's a powerful question. Is
Yeah.
what do you know? Did what was the skill? What skill? Oh, what skill do you want to learn this week? Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you say that friend was from ministry?
He wasn't originally. Yeah, he wasn't a part of that world that I came into, but he was a Kansas City guy that I knew back in high school, and then reconnected with after college, and when I moved back here.
Perfect. And the reason I jumped back to that is because I actually just wanted to talk about that a little bit. How important was having like a community or a group or any sort of spiritual foundation to rely on during those years, like between 18 and like 22 are similar to like between 12 and 14, where it's very much a molding period, of like deciding who you're going to be during this time period of your life, really a lot of character building, a lot of big decisions around relationships, friendships that are going to carry you the next 5 years. So how important was it to have a spiritual community that you could go to, and the conversations that were had in during Bible study or during just when you guys got together? How important was that vibe for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it was everything. It was everything. My entire college years could be summarized with that type of community. And what that meant for me was literally everything. Those guys, like my three closest friends back in college, they're all three in long-term ministry right now, or have the desire to go back into ministry or anything like that. But the overall that I can say about it was it was the biggest relief to have those people have my back. And we all have this one thing in common, which gives us all some sort of peace, and everybody has a different dynamic with their faith and what that looks like for them. But for us, it provided a lot of peace. And so no matter what was going on, school and other stuff seemed really secondary and really minor compared to the types of things that we were talking about and dreaming about and trying to do for the world, or trying to like see how we can help people, or just, whatever it was. And so for us, what that built was that community, like you said, but it was this common thread of, hey, we all have this sense of peace about us, which makes everything else that we experience in college, which would normally stress everybody out, seem really minor, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I would summarize it. It was super important.
This is a little off topic, but on topic. Didn't what's his name? I got to think of his name. Another cat from the Kansas City area that also does videography. Didn't he go to Arkansas? The guy with Let It Fly Media, or
Billy Quach and Andy Torres. Yeah, both those guys are from Arkansas, and I've connected with them over IG over the past year, but I actually didn't know them in college at all.
I was assuming you guys like all were connected somehow, just because I like came across that knowledge. Like, I was, through Instagram, you find like the most randomest of things. You're like, oh, this person's connected to this person. Oh, I met this person at a party and they're friends with this person who's from this side of the country. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's dope. That's dope. So how would you best describe what the past 2 years look like? Because like you said, 2 years ago is the first time you picked up a camera. And of course, you're young and there's so much more growth and amazing things you're going to do in the next 50 years, no doubt about it. But there's a lot of work you've done in the past 2 years that's pretty fucking cool to other people, I'm sure to yourself as well, but definitely to the outside world. So kind of like one word to describe the past 2 years, what word would you use?
Man, the first thing that comes to mind is it's kind of cliche, but just learning. Man, like during the past 2 years, I haven't felt like there's a week that's gone by that I haven't learned something new about photo or video or about like, you know, aspects of social media or aspects of content creating or anything like that. Like when I first got my camera, it had been probably about a week or so, and I had gotten a call from a guy named Jake Triplett. And Jake's a guy that lives in KC. He creates videos for Trey Kennedy, Trey Kennedy's like a famous YouTuber, like really, really hilarious dude. But at the time, he had a project that he was about to go on called Ellen, We Bought a Limo. And it was a cross-country road trip in a limousine from Portland, Maine, to get to LA, and the goal was to do good deeds along the way, create YouTube videos, do all this stuff. By the time they got to LA, they would get on the Ellen show.
Wow.
And so he had called me like literally a week after I got my camera, and we had some mutual friends and some different things. And I ended up going on that trip with them.
Nice.
And so I was only on the trip for about a month. It was a shorter time period. I made it down to like North Carolina, I think. But when I was on that trip, the amount of knowledge that I learned just from watching him create videos every day, shoot a video, edit a video, and the whole process that takes every single day, I learned exponentially during that time. And then after that trip ended, I came back to Kansas City, got connected with Creators Group in KC, which was founded by Jay Austin and Jack Blake and a couple other people. But when I connected with them, then it was constant learning. Just being around Jack and watch how he creates his process, because I didn't even know how to work any of my software really. I didn't know more than the basics. And so, and it hasn't stopped. Like that beginning time period was a lot really quick, but I really feel that I just know that there's so much more to learn all the time, and there's new softwares, there's new things. So learning would be the word that I would kind of place on it.
And first off, I love that. That's low key a crazy story about what he did though with the limo. What's it called again? What was it? What was it?
It was called Ellen, We Bought a Limo, and they actually ended up getting on the show.
Wow, I'm gonna Google that. That sounds dope.
Yeah.
So during that time period, how important? Like, I mean, you just stated how important, but how important would you say it is to have like either a mentor or a group of people that are in the same industry as you around you? Would you say that like your environment and what you ended up being surrounded by is what molded you into like where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is right during this big identity shift of my life, from being like, I'm going to do ministry for forever, to all of a sudden trying to do camera stuff. And so having a community, number one, in general, whether it's with a camera or not, was super important. But number two, being around those people, and I'm also learning, was like so essential. If I hadn't gotten around Jack and Creators Group right around that time period, I probably either would have given up entirely, or I just would have been kind of flopping around until I found another job. Like I would have been trying to shoot videos and trying to do stuff. But freelancing's hard as it is. Like for anybody in any field, freelancing's hard. But if you're freelancing and you also don't have any sort of community support, some people around you to challenge you, to help in any of that aspect, man, it's almost impossible. I truly believe that. And so, yeah, during that time period, having those guys around me was like the most amazing thing, because it not only helped my videography, but it also discovered who I am as a person again. Because I really didn't know what was up and what was down at that point in time, and I was really broken. And so those guys meant everything to me.
Man. So I wanna talk about like the first photo of yours that I saw, and I don't know too much about like photography or editing, but I also want to just talk about how you create a photo. So I'm pretty sure it's like, was it the Western Auto sign, and then it's like super blurred and has like, it looks like the picture has been like smeared and spread apart, kind of like.
Yeah.
So first off, is that a style, and does that have a name, that type of like photography? And then number two, like, how did you make it look like that? This is for my personal interest. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no. So I think you're talking I've got a bunch of photos of Western Auto one. Are you talking about the one that shows the full building, or just the sign specifically, or the one with me in front of it?
Just the
sign.
Yeah.
So in Kansas City in general, there's not that many like cool buildings, right? Like there's a couple staples. And so the Western Auto building is obviously a staple that everybody tries to shoot. And so I'd shot it a few different times, a lot of different ways. And that specific photo that you're talking about, where it's just the sign, I cropped in a lot. So the lens that I have is 24-70 G Master lens, which I have a bigger one now, but that time period, I'm far away is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to crop in a lot. I cranked the shutter speed a little bit so it captures it faster. Shutter speed is just how fast the shutter closes, right, to capture the image. And then editing wise, just in general, the style is just street photography. And there's a lot of people that do it a lot better than me, but that's what I was originally doing. I was making travel videos. I was doing all the brand stuff, but I was just trying to make the coolest stuff that I could. I didn't know what it was or what exactly it was going to be. And photography was secondary to me. It was always video stuff first, but I was like, I have the camera. Why wouldn't I learn photography as well? And so my first photos were rough, like real rough. But that time period that you're talking about was some of the most learning that I did, because I edited photos every single day to try and get better. And so that one stuck with me a lot. And if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, it was just a little bit more dehazing on Lightroom CC is what I edited on, and a couple other effects. But yeah, that street style is what I really focused on for the first year of my entire videography career, like year and a half, honestly.
Man, and I think you said something really important right there, is that you didn't exactly know what the style was or exactly what you were doing, but you were just trying to make the coolest like photos you could, like just trying to just make it as cool as possible. And then following what you said right there, you just said every day you were just editing. So I think it's really important for people to kind of understand that if you're trying to develop a new skill, if you're trying to get into a new industry, acquire new knowledge, it's not really about being perfect at first. It's not really having to know all the words and intricate situations at the very beginning. And you can't expect yourself to know all that, especially because you just started. But what you can do is you can try to make what looks as cool as possible to you. And then you can spend time in they wasn't with me shooting in the gym. Like you can spend your time like really in the trenches, as they would say, and develop your skill little by little. And there's lots you can learn from that little statement right there. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So the challenging question.
Yeah.
How would you, I mean, you said it at the beginning when I'm like, tell them what you do, but when people come up to you, like how, or when your parents were asking you what you're doing, like over the past year, as like when you started jumping between Kansas City and LA, how are you describing, and how would you describe what you do for a living now?
Yeah.
Or during that time period, because right now it's pretty set, but yeah, how would you describe what you do for a living?
For sure. So the official title is digital content producer for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's like the full encompassing like thing I put on my resume. In reality, what I like to call myself is, obviously you can say photographer, videographer, content creator, those type of words. I say content specialist. It's kind of the key word that I say, excuse me. And a specialist is somebody that can obviously is specialized in a certain area that can do something that most people can't. The specialization that I'm talking about is that I can do photo and video at a high rate at a high quality. And there are a lot of people that can do that in the world for sure. But when I was just like going through this time period, it was, early on, it's like, well, I'm going to do video, and I just like, I do videos, I make videos, or and then it got into, I'm a content creator. I'm a this, I'm a that. And so now I just kind of go with the fact that I just say I'm a content specialist, I'm a creator, I'm a creative, along those ends, but digital content producer is the official title. If that makes sense.
Okay. Fire. And your all right. So it's late 2018, I believe, is when I started seeing you travel back and forth between Kansas City and LA. Am I correct with that time period?
So it's like I guess it'd be last summer was really when I started going out there a bunch. I had some previous California trips, but last summer, about a year ago, was when I first went out to LA and started really working out there.
Okay, talk about like your first, I guess that would be freelancing, right? Is what you were doing during that time period. So talk about like your first freelancing gig in LA. Because I was like low key, I was lit because like just to give y'all like a background of so like I said, I've been following David on Instagram since maybe early 2018, something around that time period. And I've been back and forth in Cali, but from 2018 to like till like September this year. Anyways, long story short, I've been spending a lot of time in California and I've been following David, and I was like, all right, this dude's content's sick. And I really just followed him because I was like, yo, I need to follow more people from Kansas City that are dope. So when they come out to LA, I can like have somewhat of a relationship with them when they come to the city, so I can try to like put them in contact with different people just to try to make that coastal connection. So when I see like the very first time I see David come out and he's like shooting was this dude that I was like trying to intern for. Like, I mean, he never responded, but I was trying to intern for, really just trying to get in the room in regards to like personal training or just learning how he was coaching other basketball athletes. This is Alex I'm talking about, and then I saw David like pop in there. I was like, yo, hold up, cuz, like where did I was like, where did bro come from? So yeah, talk a little bit about your first freelancing gig when you got to LA.
Yeah, so the connection there was a guy named Luke Cooper, who is from Kansas City, basketball trainer. And I had done a camp with him that winter time period. And then he said, hey, my roommate needs a guy out in LA for the summer. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I moved out there the first time, like late April of last year, in that time frame. And so I took on Alex as my client at that point. But I was living with them, I was living with the guys, and we were in the gym every single day. And the very first player that I walk in to shoot that very first day was Kevin Porter Jr. For those that don't know, Kevin Porter Jr. was the Cavs 30th draft pick, and now is on the Cavs with me as well. And so the first guy that I shoot is Kevin Porter Jr. The second people that I shoot is Nafisa Collier, who is the Rookie of the Year in the WNBA, and it's also Alex's fiance, and then Candace Parker. And there were a bunch of other people, but at that point I was like, holy shit, like look who I'm in the room with, kind of feeling. And so from there, it just kind of took off from there. And obviously, some of the people that I work with, and we'll talk more about that. But that first initial time period, being in the Mamba facility and being around those people and this level of athlete, my first thought was, oh shit, I better learn how to shoot sports, because I never really did before.
Love it.
Like I know how to know what I'm doing with the camera, but I straight up had never shot sports, and my photos were good for street stuff, but shooting sports is a whole nother world. And so I was like, I've got a lot to learn, but I know that I can provide value here. That was the main thing. I believe that I can provide value to anybody that I work with at any time. And so I kept holding on to that, and I kept telling Alex, like, you're going to have to, like, I know what I'm doing, but I don't. At the same time, we're going to have to work on this together. And the rhythm that we found together was putting out a crap ton of value content a lot of it, and it grew his page tremendously over that time. So that kind of gives you a little insight towards those first couple weeks. I was kind of having a no shit moment for sure.
And shout out to the Pure Sweat fam. Shout out Luke Cooper. They've been doing some, Luke specifically, and Pure Sweat fam has been doing some good work in Missouri, St. Louis, and Kansas City for quite some time now. So shout out to them. You know, I know they were like my first inspiration to be like, okay, so like you can be in like sport and you can be in like this realm and find a way to like succeed out of Kansas City. So shout out to them. Man, let's talk a little bit about like was that your first time in Cali, or just talk about like your comparison between Cali and Kansas City, not of which is better or anything like that, but like what are some things that you really enjoyed about your time in Los Angeles or just the West Coast in general? Because I know you weren't only in LA, but just talk about some of your experiences in regards to the city itself. Not really shooting, not really sports, but just how you like the area.
Dude, I loved it. Man, traffic's tough, for sure. Everybody will say that to you, but man, there was just always something going on. There was always something to do out there. I really, you know, wherever my career takes me or whatever, I think that I'll spend time out in LA every year for hopefully a long time, no matter how long that is. But man, there's always something to do. There's always people to connect with. There's a massive, massive network there, and everybody knows everybody in some capacity. Especially in the basketball world, once you're in that realm, it's connections and networking. It's a lot quicker pace to things. You know, I love Kansas City. I love the creative community. I love the aspect of that. And I wanted to create that creative community. That's what Creators Group was all about, was creating that bond between creators and just building a network and building a community. And so out in Cali, it's a little bit harder to create that just because everybody's so separated. Some guy will live an hour away, but really, like with traffic, that's 2 or 3, you know, and so there's so many different factors involved. But the big thing is the networking's amazing. You meet a lot of people, connect with a lot of people, and there's always something to do. So I love those two things for sure.
And where were you staying, if you don't mind me asking? When you
we were in Sherman Oaks area. So
say again.
Sherman Oaks.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like Sherman Oaks, Thousand Oaks, or whatever. I still don't really know, but I know it's a long way to drive anywhere.
Oh, for sure. Sherman Oaks is like it's like the first city you hit when you leave like LA proper and hit the valley. And then like Thousand Oaks, for the people that don't know, Thousand Oaks is like technically not even LA County. It's like pretty much Ventura County, and it's like super far north from LA. So definitely a long drive, a beautiful drive if you take the PCA, if you take Pacific Coast Highway. But man, and it's funny because it was like, and it wasn't any jealousy. It was just like funny in my head. It's funny because I was like trying to get the internship or like trying to like connect with Alex, and then I was like. And then I was also like for mad years because I was living in Calabasas for a little bit, and they opened up the Mamba facility while I like during the first year that I moved to LA. And I was like, okay, by the way, I'm a personal trainer for those of you that don't know, and then for David as well, so you understand why I was trying to get gigs here. But so I was trying to get gigs over at the Mamba facility and like trying to get in there. And I was like, one day they were like, yeah, come by, swing by and visit, and you can watch me. I can remember his name. I'm pretty sure you probably know him too because feel like I seen you do a shoot over there with him as well. But anyways, I tried to pull up there and it was a fat drive. And then I was like, I don't even drive. So I had to take a fat Uber. It was like a lot of money. And then the second day I tried to get out there, I got like lost on the bus because the bus doesn't even work once you get up to like Thousand Oaks area. It was mad crazy. Anyways, and then I started seeing you pop in there. I saw you pop in with what is his name? Gaines, Trevor Gaines, or I can't remember.
Oh, Travell. Yeah.
Travell, yeah. I tried to get a little internship there too. I had like a little interview in their little spot in Calabasas. So
Yeah.
it was really cool like seeing you shoot there, because I was like, dang, two Kansas Cityans have stepped foot in that exact spot. I was like,
That's
so
real.
it's sick. It's sick. Um, what I thought was funny was that you just shared was the first shoot that you had was with Kevin, and then you ended up with Kevin at Cleveland. So
Yeah.
was that a coincidence, or was there some connection going on there?
Dude, I think it was a bit of a connection. So obviously, KP was posting all my content throughout the summer that I was giving him, and I made multiple mixes of his during that time. Luckily, at that same time period, the Cavs were really trying to up their content. They said, like, we need to hire on at least two guys that can create content like this, talking about this kind of modernized mixes of highlights and different things, just higher level editing is what I would call it. And so within that, they were trying to find people organically over Instagram, trying to find guys that could do this. And so my boss, Javon, and Grant Gilbert, who is Dan Gilbert's son, were kind of in charge of finding these people. And so they had seen my content through Kevin Porter's page. They liked it. Then they came to my page, and then the big selling point that they said when they found me was my Trae Young Drew League video.
Yeah, that was a sick video. I remember that video.
Thanks, dude. And so the story behind that made that a real selling point, especially in my interviews, was that we finished at the Drew League at like 2 or 3 o'clock. Like, it was kind of in the afternoon-ish. There was another videographer that was there that said, hey, I'll get this to you by 6 o'clock. And I didn't say anything, but I was like, I'll do it quicker. I was like, I'll get it to Trae faster, because in this game, it's like he's going to get 10 mixes sent to him, you know, or posted. Excuse me. So who can give him the highest quality at the fastest rate? And that's probably the one he's going to post. And so I literally was in LA traffic on the way back to the house with Alex, and I was editing in the car, and I had got all the footage organized, and I turned around the entire video in probably about 2 hours, give or take a little bit. And so once I had that, gave it to Alex. Alex trains Trae, so that's the connection there. And then Alex sent it to Trae, and he posted it right away. My name's right on the bottom of the video, you know, and it just kind of took off from there. And so that was kind of the big selling point. They're like, he can do this high of a quality this quick. And that's how I got to the second interview, third interview. And then out of the 30 candidates they found, they landed on me and then my partner, Courtney, who is from Brooklyn. And so that's kind of some background about that. So KP and his content and him being drafted by them was what needed to take place for me to eventually land the job. So it's kind of crazy.
Man, that's a crazy story. How would you, as you started getting into shooting, you know, you started working with Alex and then, you know, other shoots throughout your time in LA, how would you start to describe your style or tone with your shoots since you started shooting sports? And I personally, from just visually seeing on your Instagram, it's definitely like continuously progressing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's transitioning through different vibes, but it all works together. Like, you've done a good job not making it look crazy different here, crazy different here, crazy over here. Like, it's been like a smooth getting, like, it's always been fire. And that's not me like trying to be sugarcoat. It's just dead ass been fire. Yeah, like, how would you describe your style and your tone like over the past year?
Man, when I originally was editing my sports photos, I really didn't know what to do with them. Like, I really didn't. I had all these presets that I had created for street stuff, you know, night photography, you know, different aspects of that. But I really didn't know how to capture people that well. Like, I could do a family portrait. I could do stuff like that. But I really just hadn't shot people that much, just in general. It's been more travel related things. And so a big aspect of it was learning how to shoot people well for the first time, but I'm also doing it at a really high speed. Like, these guys are running, these guys are dunking, these guys are and so you're learning all these aspects of photography really quick. But color-wise was the biggest thing. My coloring got a lot better during that time period. And you're right, my coloring's changing more and more now. It's got different tones and different feels to it. But I found one of my street photography things, which was made more for a really bright, open field kind of look. And I'd found that preset that kind of randomly worked well with what I was shooting. And so I took that preset that I had, and then I started to mold it towards more sports portrait photography. And so the tones of that then allowed me to land on what I'd use for almost all my photos now, which I've got a lot of presets that I've created over time. But that same look and feel that you're talking about kind of starts with one big basis. And so there's a lot of aspect to it, but I spent a lot of hours working on my coloring to get it to the point that it's at now. So yeah, during that time period, it was a lot of learning because my first photos, I had no idea how to do it. There wasn't somebody I was trying to copy or imitate. It was, hey, I'm going to take what I knew from travel photography and I'm going to try to integrate that as best as I can into something new. And I think that I hit it. Obviously, it's worked out decently since then. But yeah, those are some thoughts.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I got out of that is it's really important to just have, no matter what niche category you're trying to fit into in any industry, but in photography or videography, it's really important to have a foundation in other areas as well, so that you can pick and grab from certain areas and apply it to create a dope product. You know what I'm saying? So when I was just talking about this on my Instagram the other day, and it's when we so many people will try to force us into focusing on only one thing at such an early time in our lives or early time in our career. And I would argue against that. I would say, mess with everything so that you can have a broad foundation that you can build off and apply to a niche category when that time is right, when you find where you're going to be at. So I think you've done a really good job at doing that and being a perfect example of that. And I think it's really, really important for, the photographers, the videographers, and then any other industry, creative industry that taps into this podcast to understand that it's okay to mess around with different things. Matter of fact, I encourage you, and I would say David would encourage you too, to really play around with mad different editing softwares, mad different types of shoots, mad different types of cameras. And when you're provided with an opportunity to do something big, you're going to be able to put together some dope shit because you have a toolbox to choose from. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
I also wanted to tap into something real quick. I just wanted to kind of shout you out real quick. One thing I think is really important for people specifically in the creative industry or in any creative field is to really be a good person, bro. Be a good person. Be a kind and like good energy to be around. One thing David's been able to put out there and through Instagram. This is my first time, ladies and gentlemen, being on a video call or a call or anything with David right now. But just through his Instagram, he's able to put out good energy. He interacts with the people that comment under his things. He interacts with people who DM him when he gets the time. My guy is a very busy person. He has no idea who I am, and I'm sure there's many other people's creatives that reach out to him, and he takes the time out to show love. He takes the time out to interact, and then he also just puts out good energy. And then when we have this conversation right here, I'm able to really see how cool of a vibe you have, and a relaxed and loving energy that I feel from you. So first off, shout out to you, but then also people take heed of that and understand you don't need to be no badass, cool person, quiet, I'm a creative, in my zone, silent person. You know what I'm saying? Not that that's a problem, but I would suggest if you're looking to secure some pretty dope positions, you really need to be a person that people want to be around.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's the biggest thing. If you're going to freelance or offer any service to anybody, the number one thing we're in business of is we're in the people business. That's if you don't know how to interact, these guys weren't asking just for me to come and shoot content for them every day. They're saying, hey, come live with us for the summer, come hang out with us, come be a part of this. And you got to make sure that you can handle that you can be a person that people want to be around, that you can bring good energy, like you're saying. And so I try and get back to everybody that reaches out, because there's a guy that I looked up to a lot early on, and I still do. His name's Matt Como. He's a big time creative. And man, when he commented on one of my early videos that I said was inspired by him, man, it meant the world to me. Like, it really did. And I just remember that feeling, and I always held on to that. And so now I've taken it to the point where I'm doing these FaceTime mentorship calls with younger creatives, and I just put it out there to the world. And I've spent all day on calls with guys, and I got a call after this too. And I just I want to be able to tell people, hey, I was you literally not that long ago, and I got your back, and I want to help. And so, that's not to pat my own back or anything like that. I just know how it felt to get the response, and also how it felt to get ignored too. And I just don't want to make anybody feel that way if I can help it, if that makes sense.
For sure. So I have, we're looking rather slim on time. So I have a few more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. First off, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far, man. If you are watching this on camera, sorry for looking up over here and looking over here. I'm just talking to my phone, which is recording, and then talking to the camera. So anyways, what editing software have you been using, at least over the past few months, for people who are already consuming your content or will start consuming your content after listening to this episode? And they start looking at the past few weeks of your content. What have you been using to edit your photos? What have you been using to edit your videos? And just, let them know.
Yeah. So I'm all on the Adobe cloud. So I edit my photos on Lightroom CC. So there's Lightroom Classic, Lightroom CC. They both are very similar. They're different in their format and their setup, but you can have the same amount of control on both. CC is just a little easier to navigate, in my opinion. So if you're looking to get into editing, CC has a free version even you can have on your phone. I'll look into that. And then I use Adobe Premiere Pro for all my videos. And there's not a day that my screen isn't filled with Adobe Premiere Pro going and some project going. It's on in the background of the screen right now. And so that is the screen I'm most comfortable with at this point. But yeah.
And what would you say your creative process looks like? So let's say a game just finished, okay? So a game just finished, literally whistle blows, game's over. What's going through your mind? What does the next 5 hours look like?
Yeah. So game just ended. People are off the court. All that's done. We run back upstairs into the office. And I'll go through all my photos really quickly at first, and I'll just pick the standout ones. Luckily, I can remember some of the shots that I got throughout the game and everything, and so I'll be able to pick probably 100 photos out really quickly, 100-ish. Through that process, I'll pick a top 30 or so, and then I will send that into the team right away so they have that for the morning. And so those are my top 30. Now I'll still have more photos to go through later, find some intricate ones that I missed or something that might be good, but I want to get that first set of photos out quickly. The second thing is in-game, we're sending out clips in-game. Literally during timeouts, I'll pull up my laptop, pull in my card, and create a clip right there on the court. So in game, we've got it down to a really quick rate. At halftime, I'm usually delivering 2 or 3 clips. And then during timeouts, if any big play happens, I'm trying to turn that clip around right now. First half, I'm on the court. Second half, I'm roaming. So second half, I have more freedom to go to my laptop in the back. But first half, I'll pull out my laptop literally on the court and during a timeout, and I'll just sneak it in real quick and then send the clip out. So post game, let's say we win, which the Cavs didn't win a ton this year, but we're getting better. But let's say we win, then that process, now I go through my footage, every single clip, front to back. And you can speed up your clips, obviously, in Premiere, but I'll go through my clips and I will find in and out every single good clip that I have, every single good moment, and I will set it in a timeline. So it's all in the timeline, and all the best plays, all the best moments are all in this timeline. It could go all the way to 30 minutes long, 20 minutes long. Like, it's a really long timeline, but it's full of the best of the best. And I'll try and organize those pre-game, first quarter, second quarter, throughout. And so with that, then I'll go in, I'll find music, which we have to have licensed music. So we have software for that and everything, but I'll find music. And then once I find the music, then I start putting the mix together. Now this process is quite long, or it can be quite short, but I'll basically find the clips that go best together. You have to have an intro a little bit. So I'm only going to 60 seconds to work with. So you do your intro a little bit, you work with the music, and then you start creating that mix type. Things I look for initially in the intro is I have 3 seconds to gain your attention. That's a view on Instagram. It's 3 seconds long. I have 3 seconds to get your attention to get you to stay here. So I want my first 3 seconds to be the best of the best, whether it is something different, like a photo that I photoshopped that moves towards you and the titles are going behind the guy, like a 3D photo parallax effect, or I am, something different along those ends. And then I kind of get into it from there. But my process is very trial and error. I'll try a million things on one clip and then find the one thing that I really like about it. As an editor, we fail probably 100,000 times before we hit the right way, the right feel. So I don't just throw the clips in there and call it good. Everything is like really intricately like defined as, hey, this is the perfect thing that'll go right here, and it needs this effect on it. It needs this, it needs that. I've got all my extra overlays and all that stuff laid out, all my coloring stuff ready to go, and then I just go to work. And then I will probably finish the mix at about 3 or 4 in the morning, go home, or I'll send it out, go home, rest up, and then I'll get to the office probably about 10 or 11, a little bit later in the morning, and then go through my photos again, get more photos ready, and then it's game time. And then, the next game's up and you got to get ready to go again. So that's kind of some of the process of it.
Man. First off, that was dope to just like hear, because, from the outside looking in, all we get to see is the end, which is amazing. Of course, we appreciate it. But like knowing, like, just visualizing David like over here editing in the middle of the game, somebody's, what I'm saying, and then like delivering this. Anyways, that's sick. So I think that's dope for a lot of people to just kind of get a deep dive into your creative process during these, especially of the content that a lot of these people love. So, geez, there's so many questions I want to ask you, and it's hard to choose which ones.
Keep going, bro. We got a little bit of time.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about social media. So, because you talked about, you have 3 seconds to gain somebody's attention on Instagram. Are there any specific strategies for you specifically on your page that you use, or that are in mind when you're trying to put out good content? What are you looking for in your feedback once you post a post? What are you like? I don't even know how to like definitely detail the question.
I know what you're getting at. Man, so the first thing that I think of, honestly, I try not to overthink it. I think a lot of people overthink it. I know at this point in time that I have good content. I am blessed to have shot 60 plus games of NBA content. Not a lot of people on this planet have done that, so I am blessed for the fact that I have all those photos and all that footage to kind of work with. The second aspect of it is I trust that what I have is solid. And I will go through, at this point in time during quarantine, since I'm not having new content, I go through all my photos. I'll pick out like 4 or 5 that I like that I haven't posted, or I haven't posted in a really long time. I'll get those 4 or 5, change them up if I need. And then I'll usually send them out to a couple buddies and be like, hey, like, which one do you like? Just to get some outside feedback. It's always good to get more feedback from other people. And then I'll just post it and just be like, all right, call it good. And so number one is I try not to overthink it. Strategy wise though, the strategy behind that is consistency. So I took about a month off when quarantine initially started. And that's the first break that I've had in a really long time. But think of your Instagram page as a TV show that's on every single week. Everybody knows that The Last Dance, for instance, was on Sunday night at 7 p.m. and they could watch The Last Dance. And so there's a build up to that every single week towards The Last Dance. Now, I post pretty much in the afternoon every single day for the most part. I might miss a day or something like that, but almost every day I'm posting in the afternoon-ish. So everybody that follows me can bet on that consistency, and they're not surprised by that. They're not taken aback by that. They know that it's going to be there. And they go from there. So part of it's consistency. Part of it is not stressing about it, because I used to stress out a lot about it, and it's not worth it. You're going to detract yourself as a creative if you do that. Side tangent on that, creatives aren't creative because they're creating things. They're creative because they're problem solvers. Creativity equals problem solving. So when I stopped looking at my creativity like I've got to create the coolest thing ever, and I started looking at it as I have a problem of this photo needs edited, this footage is boring right now, or whatever. Creativity is problem solving. And if you get burnt out, the first thing that goes is your problem solving ability, right? And so I don't want to get burnt out because I will lose my creativity at that point. I don't want to do that. So focused on my health and just being healthy first, but also being consistent when I can. Those are kind of the two big things I push to people, because people will freak out. People will worry about they're not posting enough or whatever. If you can, if you're healthy, post every day at a certain time. If you can't do that consistently, then do it 3 days a week, 2 days a week, whatever it is, and make it the best quality that you can. But there's sometimes where a little iPhone video of us talking is 1,000,000 times more effective than a professionally done photo. And that's just the world we live in now. Nothing's wrong with either of those, as long as you're creating stuff. Make sure you're healthy enough to create. That's my biggest push to anybody out there.
That's important. I'm glad you actually said that. So many people get so frustrated with social media and they become so overwhelmed with it. And then on top of that, they were already stressed and already unhealthy. So it's really just compounding onto their, mental unrest, physical unrest. And it really just turns into something bad. You know what I'm saying? So don't get caught up, don't get lost in the sauce. And like Gucci Mane would say. Man, that's dope. I like that you shared that. Okay, I promise you this is gonna be my final two questions, and then hopefully someday in the future, if you have another free day, we can get a part 2. Man, I think this is just something. This is just for the fans to hear. This is more of a fan question. All right, who are your top 5? Who were your top 5 favorite experiences meeting? Like, what are the top 5 people that you met and it was just like, shit, this is lit. And then maybe your top 2 or top 3 favorite shoots.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm gonna work backwards, and I think I can give you 5 maybe. That it might be a shorter list than that, but man, I love working with Kevin Love. Man, Kev is such a cool dude. Like he's super dope. And man, he just, all this stuff about him doing all this mental health stuff and everything else, like that's who he is. And he genuinely cares a lot about it. And he's just been really, really easy to work with and really cool to see all this other stuff that he's been pushing out. So I love Kev. KP's my guy. And so, it's been just fun just rolling with him through this process from the summer all the way through the season and everything. He's going through his first year in the NBA. That's a lot to handle. But I know that having me around and having him around has been just easiness for both of us just to work in our field. Candace Parker's an amazing individual. She's super dope. Super genuine.
Shout out to that legend.
Right. Man, I love Doug McDermott. I love Bobby Portis. I had that Arkansas connection with Bobby. BP's my guy, and like it was super fun seeing. I was on the court against the Pacers, and I hadn't seen Doug yet during pregame, and I get nailed in the back of my leg by a ball, and I just kind of ignore it, and I'm like, oh, loose ball, whatever. And I get nailed again, and I turn around, and it's Doug, and he's literally pegging me with the ball. And so it's like fun to see those guys in the season as well. Like, love those dudes. But obviously number one most incredible person to meet and to see was Kobe. And that takes on a whole new meaning now, obviously. But we got to shoot with him. I was around him, I think, 4 workouts in total, maybe 3. I got to shoot 2 of them. And man, and we were with Sabrina Ionesco, and then we were with Kristen Williams and Olivia Nelson that play for the Huskies, and on another day. And man, that experience, just being around Kobe, I hadn't freaked out about anybody that I met. I pretty much kept it together, but meeting him was literally like meeting God. It's just like this whole nother level of human being. And man, all that fear goes away right when he says hi to you. He's very intentional. He's very intent on talking with you, on getting to know you, on shaking your hand, on saying what's up. And man, just the short time period that I did have with him and with the other Mambas and with Gigi and stuff, like, they just worked so hard, and they loved it too. They were having a lot of fun, and they just loved it. And so, Alex had a really strong relationship with him that went back for years now. And Alex can speak on a lot of that stuff a lot more than I can. But my very short time period with him and around him was super special. And I'm really fortunate that I got to do that.
And first off, shout out to K-Love. If you guys want to hear a little bit more about K-Love and his, yoga, mental health, the vibes, go listen to Nike Trained, I think, with Ryan Flaherty interviewed Kevin Love, and it's a great interview. You guys should go check that out. And then also rest in peace to Kobe. And shout out to you for hustling the past 2 years, getting to where you're at. With your new offer with the mentorship. Shout out to you for giving back to the community, giving back to the people who are really, and you can attest to this because you went through it as well, are really just trying to figure out how to be great in their field and find a way to monetize it. Because of course, first and foremost, it's about passion, about loving it. But if you want to do it for life, you got to take care of your kids, you got to take care of your family. So that, the monetizing portion is really important, and getting mentorship from somebody that's been able to secure, a secured position and do well is really important to the young people and old people who are just trying to figure things out. So shout out to you for spreading love, for putting out great content, for being a good person. I really appreciate this conversation, and we're going to wrap it up with this very last question. Okay, so all of your content has been taken away. Everything you've shot in the past, every Instagram photo, Facebook photo, YouTube clip, highlight from the cat, everything has been taken away. You get one chance to tell your grandkids, supposedly, imagine they're here. You get one chance to tell your grandkids, a piece of advice about how to live life. What are you going to tell them?
Man. That is a great question, man. I love that. I'm going to steal that from you for real. That is a great question. Man, the number one thing that I would tell them, I've got a couple different trains of thoughts, but I won't cheat. I'll try to stick to one. It's not about you. That's what I would tell them. I would say that you can do a million things in this world and a million great things for yourself and everything else. But if you don't know the greatest lesson, that it's not about you, and it's about helping other people, and it's about giving back, and it's about like, yes, pursue your passions, yes, keep creating, yes, all the taglines that I would normally give. But if you're doing all of that with just the only motive is just yourself, then you will run out, and you will get to the end of the line, and there won't be anybody around next to you when you get to the end of the line. And that's something you have to tell yourself every day, because it's easy to have your ego come up. It's easy to want to be selfish, and there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that. But have the end goal in mind to impact as many lives as you can, to help as many people as you can, and to do the best work that you can. And so, yeah, it's not about you. That would be the line.
I love it. I love it. It's not about you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to everyone that tapped into this video, that's watching at home. Shout out to y'all. Love everyone that listened to this via audio. Love to you. Love to the family. And man, thank you again, David. Love to you. And love to your content. I hope you continue creating the dopest of stuff. I'm gonna continue being a fan. And again, I hope we get a part 2 in it sometime soon.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir, bro. Stay blessed.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. See ya.